Welcome back to Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Burt Miller, and I'm very, very excited today about today's guest, Mr. Dan Arment, the CEO of Riddell and BRG Sports. I've known Dan for over 30 years and worked with him at Revlon North America. And his background, as I remember, he's always been a leader of people, and it started on the football field at Colgate as an outside linebacker, and he continues today leading great people and companies and doing good work. I always enjoyed being around Dan and learning from Dan. He is a couple years older than myself, so I did learn from him. Anyhow, well, Dan, let's just jump in. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Bert, and thanks for the kind words and introduction. I appreciate that. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. So I always enjoy at the beginning of these podcasts to really start to understand the guest journey in their careers and how they got to where they are. And just walk us through the ride, if you would, from the days you were playing football at Colgate to Revlon in the cosmetics world, fast forward to Speedo, and then, of course, the last 21 years at Riddell BRG.
Yeah, sure. Well, geez, you're asking me to go to the Wayback Machine here a little
Yeah.
bit, but because I was thinking about it, it's been 38 years since I entered the workforce. So, and I did start in the consumer packaged goods business, really sales and sales management, as kind of you did similarly. Worked for companies initially for Playtex, then Menon, and then spent 10 years at Revlon, which was a pretty good run for all of us, if you recall. Really learned a lot in that early part of my career and influenced me as I went forward. I joined Speedo in the late 90s. And that, I guess, you think about that as sort of my first introduction into the sporting goods business, but really it was the apparel business. And I was there for a period of time. The holding company, the larger company was underneath Warnaco, went Chapter 11. About that same time, an opportunity came up to work for Bell Sports. Again, on the sales side of the equation. So I joined Bell Sports in 2001 and was leading the sales organization there, the mass sales organization. Over a period of time, became general manager. Also in that period of time, we were owned by private equity. They also had purchased or combined us with Riddell and then the Easton sports businesses.
Mm-hmm.
In 2008, the CEO at the time asked me to come to Riddell, Chicago to be president. It was an opportunity that made sense for me. So we moved from the West Coast, California, here to the Chicagoland area. And then around 2012-13, there was another change at the CEO level. Frankly, the mentor of mine, Terry Lee, asked me to take over a role as President of Bell Sports, President of Riddell, and Executive Vice President of BRG Sports. Our mission really was to divest businesses. At that point, again, we were private equity owned, which we did. And in 2016, Terry went up to executive chairman. I took over CEO of BRG Sports and Riddell. Essentially, BRG Sports is Riddell. That is the business.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
That's the journey.
Wow. Well, a great journey and some amazing brands that you've been part of. And I bring that up because I do recall, Dan, your leadership ability and the fact that you've always been able to attract talent and put great people around you. And certainly you've been rewarded with that throughout your career and the growth of your career. A little bit at Riddell. Talk to me, I've seen some of the assets and seen some of the interviews with the people in the warehouse. They just love the brand. They love working for Riddell and the overall group, and almost to the point it almost does feel almost like a family. So talk to me a little bit about your leadership style and the attraction of talent and why people do follow you.
Well, look, people love the football business. So, you start with that and, that's, it's fun to be part of, the industry. And Riddell's success, predates my coming here, by 80 something years. We're, 90-year-old business. So really well-established brand, well-known, highly respected in the sports equipment industry. From my leadership perspective, I've been fortunate to work with, attract, and be part of a really, really strong executive team. We've been together, as a team for the most part for, a decade or longer. And I think that's a little bit unusual. But when you have qualified people that are really functionally capable, it makes your job a lot easier. And that's one of the things that I've learned throughout my career is, you have really good people working for you. It makes things a lot easier to manage and allows you to focus on sort of setting strategic direction. And really what I try to do is to sort of set the strategic direction, obviously with the input of the team, and then let people do their jobs, delegate. You don't have to micromanage everybody. You need to be part of the process. You need to step in when there's particular challenges and assist the process. But if you do that, your team develops, I think, in a manner that allows them to grow, develop, and allows your business to really thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think as you just articulated, that is a terrific overview of your ability, and you ought to write a book on that, Dan, because I think there's a lot of leaders. I mean, if you take a look at what's going on in the world today, we've had more turnover at the CEO level in 2022 than in some time. I'd like to segue real quick. You talked about the company itself, and the company now being over 90 years old, and yet the brand stability has sustained over this period of time. Number one, at Riddell, and two, you guys continue to be on the forefront of innovation and technology. How have you been able to do that with a company that's over 90 years old?
Yeah, good question. Let me put a little perspective on that. I think the DNA of Riddell throughout its history has always been, tightly linked to innovation. And if you look through the history of the company, most, if not all, arguably innovations in football equipment, helmets in particular, have come from Riddell. So when I got here, that foundation was really solidly built. However, the football universe and world was sort of changing at the time, much more awareness about the importance of protecting athletes' heads, and a lot of visibility around that. And that really presented, I think, an opportunity for Riddell to take its leadership and innovation leadership to another level. One, first of all, from an equipment standpoint, how do you accelerate the pace of innovation? The football world had traditionally been sort of slow to adopt innovations. As the environment changed, it became more important, and people became more open to the idea of new technologies, new innovations coming into the marketplace. And I think we really threaded that needle exceptionally well and really drove the pace of our innovation. The other side of it was, how do you start to communicate as a brand in this new world that's more complex? There's a lot of misinformation out there. It became incumbent upon us to really focus on contemporizing our message, letting people know what we were doing, and becoming more vocal from a leadership standpoint around what we were doing.
No, absolutely. So now you've been instrumental, Dan, over the last 5 years, well, 20 years, but certainly the last 5 years as a CEO. You've been instrumental in terms of the growth of the brand and the Riddell brand and the partnerships, including those with the NFL. And part of that has really been driven around technology. So talk to me a little bit about how you are thinking about building an organization of the future, Riddell, and the technology component along with the brand and the partnerships that you are building throughout.
Yeah, I think I'd go back to, it's important to remember that we are a sports equipment company, first and foremost. So the ability of our products to protect and perform on field for a broad range of constituents, because it's not just the athlete, it's the coach, it's the athletic director, the athletic trainer, the equipment manager. We have to be very cognizant of that universe. And as you know, as an athlete's going to utilize the products that they think help them perform better. So we've got to strike that balance. We've been very successful with that. Again, around the time that the awareness around head protection became so critically important to everybody and an opportunity, we developed the product roadmap and said, okay, here's where we're at. Here's the technologies we have. How do we build those technologies out and where do we intersect the various technologies into our product line, and then build the organization around the needs required to support that.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the technology real quick, Dan. So what is the feedback from the technology that people get that allows for coaches, trainers to ensure the safety of the athletes? I really am curious about the insights.
Well, I think there's, like, we think about our product roadmap in three segments. First, there's the core helmet technology. How are you building, the football helmet that, well, it's not the football helmet you and I wore today, but it is a football helmet that's, designed to protect and improve athlete performance. So those, you focus significantly on that in driving your innovation quickly. The other two segments of our product roadmap have been custom fit technologies, because helmets that fit better, perform better from a protection standpoint and a performance standpoint, and then smart technologies. How do you, the helmet can provide information back. And the intersection of those three components of our product roadmap have been very critical to our sort of longer term vision. And the feedback that we get comes right from the users, whether it's a coach, athlete, athletic trainer, equipment manager. We get very direct feedback because we're very, very intricately involved in the world, the football universe.
That's great. So that leads me to the next point. So the technology and the feedback, I want to talk about the smart technology real quick. So the feedback's coming back to obviously where, and that feedback, what is the impetus, or what comes back to the trainers or the coaches that say, hey, we have a problem before it is a problem?
Yeah, let me step back and give you a little better perspective of that smart helmet technology, which frankly we've been developing since the early 2000s. It started with a very robust system called the Riddell Sideline Response System, predominantly used in major universities with major football programs, but also a research arm. And was very, very instrumental in a lot of rules changes at the NFL. The NFL kickoff rule was changed because of research done through the Riddell Sideline Response System. And again, very robust technology. But the challenge for us was, okay, this is great, but it's expensive. You need grad assistants to help you manage it. Most high schools, lower levels don't have those kind of resources. It's important for us that our technologies aren't just used at the elite levels, but that we can push them down to the broad football universe. So in the early 2010s, we started on a journey to develop what we called Insight. The Insight technology is a technology that, sits in any football helmet. And it starts to give data back on what impacts the players are receiving. Now, over time, we've developed that technology to now we have Insight Analytics. And what Insight Analytics, Bert, is it draws from, we have a database of over 8 million impacts. We believe it's the largest database of impacts in the world. And from that, we have by position, by skill level, a wealth of data that we can draw from, and our helmets are all instrumented, can be instrumented, and that will send information back to the program, back to us in the program, that allows us to do comparative analytics. Performance analytics have become, quite widespread use in the sporting goods industry, but we have a very unique set of data that allows us to give that information back by player, by position, by position group, by total team, and it can break down and compare versus national norms and highlight where there's opportunities, frankly, more of a training tool as opposed to an alert and monitoring tool. Alert and monitoring, it will tell you if somebody received an impact that you should go evaluate that athlete. But what's more important to football programs is how do I teach and train my athletes to avoid those kind of impacts so that they stay in the game?
Yeah, that is incredible, incredible insight and technology that you have. And obviously, that's what's keeping Riddell on the forefront. That's terrific. So, when you look at your competition, because as we mentioned, you've been around 90 years. Now you've been around 90 years, but you continue to be the leading brand, and now you're leading relative to the technology and innovation as well. When you think about the technology or the competition, how do you benchmark that against other sports? You're not just benchmarking against your direct competition, football helmets and that, but you're also looking across the landscape of other sports to benchmark your product.
Yeah, good question. Well, I say as it comes to competition, like one of the things that is sort of in the DNA of Riddell is we are incredibly paranoid about our competition. I think you have to be. The minute you start to, read your own press clippings, as they say, from a leadership standpoint, you're setting yourselves up for a problem. And obviously, we stay very focused on the equipment competition, but we also look more broadly at what are other segments of the sporting goods world's doing. And I think the Insight Analytics is a perfect example of that. We saw that performance analytics was becoming ubiquitous in the sports world from an evaluation tool. Why wouldn't we take this proprietary database that we have of 8 million impacts and translate that into something that's beneficial for the sport, beneficial for teams and athletes, helps better protect them, helps them perform better, but also is beneficial for our business.
Yeah, and you aggregate that data and you can slice and dice it any way you want, position, athlete, as you mentioned earlier,
all timestamps, so it can be matched up with, you can take a practice planner, load in a practice planner that a team would have, and see by individual segment, drill by position, what's going on with those athletes and where their impacts located, what kind of impacts are they have. It's amazing the information that comes out of it.
Yeah, it is very interesting, and it is different from the days that you and I played. We just threw a helmet on. By the way, we did have face masks, didn't we, Dan?
Yes, we
For all the
did.
listeners
And
out there.
and they weren't leather either.
No. Well, anyhow, the next question is really coming back to leadership. I mean, I think a lot of leaders talk about being forward thinking, but what does that mean to you about being forward thinking, and how do you go about executing that as a mindset for how you lead Riddell and you lead your team?
Look, leadership, innovation, forward thinking, vision, they're all great words, right?
Right.
They're just words, and every company likes to believe that that's part of their DNA, I'm sure. I think how we try to approach it is, again, coming back to the fact that we are a sports equipment company. We have to first lead from a product standpoint, but we also have to lead across the industry with key industry issues, and we have to lead with our partners. So, we're private equity owned, so delivering results every year is really, really important, but you don't deliver results every year if you're only thinking about that year. So we have to be thinking 3 to 5 years out. What's our roadmap? And then how do the other functions support and drive into that so that when we arrive there 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later, we're all aligned and ready to go.
Yeah, but when I think of that, Dan, I always think about the results, how it happens to be the scoreboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the culture, the leadership, the people you hire, the vision, the peeking around the corner, the innovation that you guys bring to the table, whether it be you or any other company, that happens to be the journey, and the byproduct ends up being the results. And so many people are focusing on the results, and you have to get that because you are PE backed. But the fact that you can also couple that with the fact of building a company, leading a company with great people, and working with the technology, that the byproduct is great results. Certainly, that's going to keep Riddell at the top of the line.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really critical point. it's all our biggest asset, our most critical asset is the Riddell team. You talked about in the opening, the passion, it's there. They love the business. How do you harness that and set the direction and communicate it so that everybody understands where you're going and is pulling in the same direction? That's not easy to do.
Right.
But I think we've done a pretty good job with that. But recognizing if your people don't know where you're going and aren't bought into it, and if you're not over communicating and consistently communicating, that's when things get off the rails.
Yeah, absolutely. Give them the North Star, give them, make sure they have the North Star crystallize, over communicate, ensure they're safe, and you'll have a great team. So what's next for Riddell? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think that's, it's an interesting question. I'd come back to, we've had this roadmap, this path that we've been on for, since I've been here. And obviously the foundation was built long before then. I think we're best served if we continue to focus on our business the way we have been. We've established a leadership position. We have a clear, vision from a product standpoint of where we want to go. We're not entirely there yet, for sure. We've got, a lot of technologies in the pipeline that we can bring forward in the future. Again, as a sports equipment company, that has to be your driving star. I do think that insight analytics is really a significant potential growth engine for the organization. So we're going to continue to do what we've been doing, but redouble our efforts to do it better and continue to succeed.
Well, look what you've done. You've created a brand, and now NFL rules have been changed because of the data, and that's come back. You've done a nice job crystallizing in 3 buckets your roadmap, which helps people understand the direction where you're going. And you're keeping what I would call positive stress on the business to ensure you don't get lulled into some routine where there's comfort, but also allowing the company to continue to grow. And then, of course, the data and the innovation. That's a great recipe for success. Dan, is there anything that I've left out in a direction that we want to go that you'd like to take us, or are we about done here?
Well, I think we've covered, most of the ground. I think what I'd probably ended up is, I'm really, really fortunate. I feel, incredibly honored to have the opportunity to lead the Riddell brand. I believe, firmly that our success has been driven by the people in the organization, because they really care, and they care about the industry, they care about football, they care about the company. That is a pretty special place to be, as you get a little longer in your career. And, I hope to continue to drive the business and lead it and help us grow and have continued success.
Well, Dan, congratulations. It's been great for me to watch your career grow, and certainly the leadership that you bring to Riddell, and the fact that, it's a company that has a lot of passion. Certainly they're passionate about football, and they're also passionate and caring about the organization. That's a tribute to all the Riddell leadership. So thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks, Bert. Appreciate it.
This is Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bert Miller, and we'll see you next time.